How to paint realistic fall leaves in watercolors, and in this tutorial I will be demonstrating how to paint yellow maple leaf. Let's go! An outline drawing is done, which is available for download. With an elastic eraser I'm removing the excess amount of graphite off the paper by rolling over the line drawing and removing all unnecessary graphite marks. Now to color mixing. Adding water to my color palette. I have real subjects in front of me which can be really helpful to understand colors. Starting with Indian yellow, adding a little touch of lemon yellow. We are painting yellow maple leaf, and of course there is a lot of yellow pigment in it. You can use cadmium yellow. For the second mix, using Indian yellow and a little touch of ultramarine blue. It gives a very light greenish touch to this yellow color mix. Third one is Indian yellow, and now we are adding ultramarine blue and a little touch of Alizarin Crimson. These three pigments, by a different ratio, you can mix any browns you like: yellow, red and blue. And for the fourth, I'm taking Indian yellow, and on my brush is a little bit left from the previous mix, and I'm adding to this mix a little bit of Sap Green for some clearer, greener mix for this maple leaf painting. Now we can start painting. Be sure that your water is clean. After mixing watercolors, I'm using 2 cups of water. One is for washing my brush and mixing watercolors, and the other one is for applying first clean watery layers. I'm starting by round synthetic brush, big wide brush strokes, watery, and I'm covering water the whole inner part of this maple leaf. Open reference photo right beside the tutorial and zoom in the middle part that we are painting right now. The water is just enough for watercolors to be moved by brush easily. They're not floating by themselves, just enough water. There are no big puddles. If I will lift my paper, nothing will drip off the paper. That's how much or less water I have on my first layer. And starting with Indian yellow and lemon yellow mix together with the third one, which was all three pigments, yellow, red and blue. Again, looking at reference constantly and seeing that there are shadow parts in this middle part which are more browner, darker, and then there's lighter parts which are more lighter and yellower. Now with the quite big and wide brush strokes, I'm applying these watercolor mixes to the moist surface of the paper. Be careful with those curved parts. The edge lines of those curved parts, we want to make them still visible, make them more crisper and cleaner, so we are not going over the edges to those curved parts of the surrounding area. We're just placing watercolor layer on the middle part. Also be careful with the outer edges, and for now, as you can see, my layer is quite light, very transparent. And applying watercolors, new colors to some already applied layers with little stippling method, with the little brush spots, and again seeing in reference where's the darker part, applying more darker area. Everything is transparent. Even the reference is very saturated in the shadow area. We're not aiming for that saturation in the first layer. It's super important to achieve a realistic and full look. We are not painting dark in the very beginning. I will be adding the same amount of watercolor mixes during this whole tutorial. It's just a matter of how many layers. It is not the strength of watercolor mixes. It is about the layers, and layering in watercolor gives this vibrancy, richness of the painting. If you are going straight with 1-2 layers and call it done, we will finish with maybe a beautiful illustration or even a flat looking painting, because to achieve a realistic and full look of the painting, we need to paint in layers and in transparent layers in order to get this richness and life of the subject. Constantly looking at reference. That's why I'm not adding reference to the tutorial screen. I always encourage open the reference on the other gadget, on the iPad, on the phone, or if you're painting from the computer, open right beside the tutorial. You can download the reference and open just beside the tutorial. When we are painting realistic paintings, we need details, and details can be seen only if we are really enlarging our reference, zooming in closer, studying the details, and constantly comparing. I can paint for 10, 20 hours and I will be still looking at reference, and I will still be noticing some new details. Now I'm adding, with a little stippling, mix of Indian yellow and little touch of ultramarine blue. I see in the reference, you can now pause the video, check these sections in the reference. Do you see that there are some green notions of the color in those areas? It's very important that you also follow the reference that I'm talking about and that you are seeing those changes. You are not just blindly following my instructions and what I'm doing, but you also need to think along with the painting process. Do you see those colors? Do you see those tonal values, the time painting, the time adding those details? You can pause the video anytime, take a look at the reference and study it on your own. That's how you will develop your observation skills and to see those different colors and different tonal values. Now with a clean and dry brush, I'm wiping some of the areas to make them a little bit lighter. While my surface is still a little bit moist, it is very easily done by washing brush in the water, dipping in paper towel and lifting out the pigment from the paper. Adding a little bit more of third mix, Indian yellow, ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson to the shadow area to make a little bit greater contrast. I'm speeding up the process of painting this maple leaf. Full tutorial is available on my Patreon and is 45 minutes long. It's suitable for beginners. In this tutorial I cover from the very beginning touches to the finishing touches, explaining all the process of painting this fall yellow maple leaf. Now I'm at the finishing part of painting this tutorial and showing you how to paint a fall maple leaf in yellow colors. I learned a lot and have an amazing time painting this. It's more watercolor friendly. You can play with watercolors with all those spots and layers, but this is the place where you can paint further, push yourself a little bit further and see what you can get of yourself and of your painting. Hope you learned something new and enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. So thank you very much and see you in my next tutorials. New autumn leaves are coming soon.